Chicago Blackhawks coach Joel Quenneville. Blackhawks coach Quenneville fascists crackdown in epidemic. Toronto, after watching his top centers thrown out of multiple draws, including some at critical moments, Chicago Blackhawks coach Joel Quenneville gave a harsh critique of the NHL's crackdown on fascia-off violations. "Tonight was an epidemic for sure," Quenneville said after a 4-3 overtime loss at Toronto on Monday night. "Right off the bat, I don't know what was the number, but I think Captain Jonathan Toews got tossed about 9 times. 8 seconds into overtime, Toews was kicked out of the face-off circle in his own zone, leaving defenseman Brent Seabrook to take the draw." Meanwhile, Blackhawks defenseman Gustav Furling also lined up for a fascia-off when his team was killing a 4-on-3 power play in the second period. Chicago had 11 players participate in a total of 64 fascia-offs, with 18 of those being taken by someone other than an everyday center. Toews' line-mate Brandon Saad went 0 for 8 in the circle. It wasn't just the Blackhawks who felt it. Toronto center Nazem Kadri was tossed from the game's opening fascia-off and was thrown out from a draw a few seconds later on the same shift. The Leafs had 10 players take at least one fascia-off. Quenneville says the frustrating part about all the violations is the lack of clarity as to why players are being tossed. "Right now, the officials don't tell you why, so that's the part. It's tough on centermen. Certainly frustration for Johnny, and Kadri was doing the same thing. I don't think they quite understood the reason why, and that's a work in progress, finding out why you're getting tossed without an answer." The NHL told the Canadian press in the preseason that cracking down on face-off violations is about safety and the integrity of game. The changes do not stem from new rules, but from stricter enforcement of the old ones. "We just felt we'd let it erode too much and it was time to shore up the face-off procedure, especially the marks in the face-off circles," NHL Director of Officiating Stephen Walkom said on September 19. "It was becoming unsafe for the linesmen, with players' feet behind them. We're trying to get them to understand it's important for the integrity of the fascia-offs and it's important for the safety of the players and the linesmen. For fascia-offs, players must face their opponents squarely and keep their feet behind the lines. It was common for centers to cheat by moving as close as possible to the fascia-off dots to gain leverage on opponents. If a player cheats, he is tossed out of the fascia-off and a teammate takes his place. If a team does it twice on the same fascia-off, it is given a 2-minute penalty." While numerous players were tossed from draws in the Blackhawks-Leafs game, no one was handed a minor penalty. The NHL said in the preseason that it also plans to crack down on slashing on the hands this season. There were 9 slashing minors handed out, including one on Chicago defenseman Jan Rutta late in the third period that led to Toronto's tying goal to force overtime.